The core issue of this sikha is an attempt to address the somewhat problematic statement regarding a situation of tzarat that develops in a piece of property, the house, which according to Vayikra 14:34 results from an act of God. V'natati nega tzarat. I shall place a nega tzarat into the homes in which you will live upon crossing the Jordan. We looked at the two seemingly opposing explanations for the actions of God. One, from the Zohar, that it reflected the Omek Hara, the depths of Klippa. The other from Rashi, drawn from the Gemara Masechet Psachim, that the Nega Tzarat, emanating from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, reflected the Riboy Hatov, an abundance of God's goodwill towards the Bnei Yisrael. In the Sikha, the Rebbe extrapolated the Nega Tzarat to also apply to the Tzarat that afflicted the body, an affliction that required ultimately total isolation from the community, and which accordingly the two positions of Omek Hara and Riboy Hatov would also apply. This extrapolation was developed by the Rambam in his final halacha of the 16 chapters of Tumat Metzorah, in which he argues that the entire purpose and intent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to bring about a Nega Tzarat was firstly as a cause and effect resulting from a person's making utterances, lashon, that has an evil outcome for others, hara, and secondly to train the individual to accept responsibility for the damage that one creates through lashon hara by undertaking a process of teshuvah. This, of course, is a hashkafa position, one that is well grounded as far as the Rambam is concerned in a psak halacha. But as we noted with all hashkafa positions, there will be invariably weak links on account of the fact that they are built on certain assumptions that the community either accepts or rejects. Before looking at the teshuvah component of Nega Tzarat, I should, in all fairness, look at some of those assumptions and pointing out where I think there might be some weak links in the line of thinking. Fundamental to the belief system of the Frum Orthodox Jew is an interrelationship between God and man. Not just man the Jew, but man as humanity. The Hebrew term that is bandied around is the word hashgacha, as in mashgiach, one who watches over and is responsible, that processes in food, in medical practices, in the study hall, abide by certain protocols. In English, the term oversight. In Yahadut, this hashgacha can be either hashgacha pratit, drilled down to the actions of an individual. There is also a position within Frum Orthodox that there is no hashgacha pratit, but rather hashgacha klalit, God's watchfulness over the perpetuation of the species. A distinction that might be useful in explaining some of the inconsistencies where there is no rhyme or reason for God's actions, direct or indirect, that affect the personal lives of individuals. But that is not for now. The first assumption is that the hashgacha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in bringing a tzarat upon one's property in Eretz Israel and during the biblical period, which is textually based, also apply to the Nega Tzarat that afflicted the body of a human being. Which then, of course, led to assumption number two, that God's hashgacha, either directly or indirectly in not stopping certain events, was not limited to Tzarat, but is broad-based, and furthermore was not limited to Eretz Israel in the biblical time period, but God's hashgacha is active, post-biblical, even to the present, is not limited to the Nega Tzarat, but manifests itself in the day-to-day lives of individuals. This, of course, would be based on the hashkafa assumption of hashgacha pratit. As noted, these two assumptions are reflected in an updated version of the Ani Ma'amim, that Sheme'ita Yitbarech Lo Teitza Haraot, no evil emanates from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ve'ein Shum Ra Ba'olam. The unfortunate situations that one may face in life are not pure evil, although we do acknowledge that at times there are evil people who do evil things, because V'hakol L'Tova, that there is a parallel intent from God in placing individuals into unfortunate situations. And depending on the degree of acceptance, this position is common to all three branches of the Frum Orthodox community. The serious weak link in this hashkafa structure that needs to be attended to at some point in time is the perennial question of justice. How could God allow some serious negative situation develop an impact on good people, righteous people, innocent children, and their parents and relatives who do not deserve to have to face such tragedies? An argument summed up in the one-liner from one who was fortunate enough to survive Auschwitz and underpins what in modern times has come to be known as Holocaust Judaism, that if there is Auschwitz, and there is, and so there cannot be God. Many have tried to bridge the gap between the comfort and belief of a creator, of a Kadosh Baruch watching over the world, and the reality of the Holocaust and other tragic events that happen, and that point to the absence, or worse still, the sadistic nature of a God. These attempts fall under the broad umbrella of Hashkafa. Some explanations are better than others. Some are so confronting that they cause out-and-out derision. At the conclusion of this third section of the Sikha, I shall digress to the response that the Rebbe has articulated to the ultimate of tragedies and challenges that face the belief structure of the frum Orthodox world, keeping in mind that all responses, including my own, fall under the umbrella of Hashkafa. They are subjective, limited in scope, and very often involve one's personal agenda. Which brings us to the topic of the next panel, the Baal Teshuvah.